website. So before we officially start our meeting tonight, I would ask that we have a moment of reflection. I don't want anybody to stand because I don't really want to know whether you're wearing pants or not. So everybody just sit. But I would like a couple things I would like to consider in our moment of reflection tonight. First one is the family of Bob Burtonshaw, who was a longtime counselor and passed away last week. Also, I think we should be remembering the victims and families of the tragic event in Nova Scotia. I think we want to remember all the hometown heroes across this great country of ours. And when I say hometown heroes, I'm talking about all the healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, all hospital and long-term care staff, the pharmacies, the grocery store people, anybody that works in a grocery store, and last and not least, the truckers that are bringing the produce and keeping this country going. And I'm sure I've maybe missed a few, but I think we, in our moment of reflection tonight, remember all those particular people. Okay, now just a couple, and we'll make some rules as we go along, I'm sure tonight. But the first item, just before Carla gives us some information here, when it comes time for you want to make a point or you want to speak, or if we're moving a motion and I want to see who's in favor, if you can put your hands up fairly close to your face so that I can see them on the camera, and do that also if you're going to be, if you want to speak, and that way I'll know how to, move along with the whole meeting. So the first item then on the meeting tonight is the procedural consideration. So Carla, I'm going to turn that over to you. I hope. There she is.
Here I am. So the first report here is regarding an amendment to the procedural bylaw. And this amendment is coming after the passing of Bill 187. So what this is allowing council to do under the Municipal Act is to hold an electronic meeting, but to allow electronic participation to be counted towards quorum and occur both in open and in closed session. So those two key items, the quorum and the closed session, are not permitted under the Municipal Act, nor in our procedural bylaw. So I'm just looking for a motion to accept those changes to the procedural bylaw. If you have any further questions, I can answer.
Okay, any questions before we go any further? Okay. Nope. All right, great. So the recommendation here, and I'll just repeat it, Carla covered it, but the Council of Municipality of West Perth receives the report amendment to procedural bylaw for electronic meeting participation during the emergency, and that West Perth Council approved the proposed procedural bylaw 34/2020 included in the bylaw section of the agenda to allow for electronic participation during emergency, and that bylaw 1-2018 be repealed. So a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Murray, Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Marshall. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, good, that's carried. Thank you. One down. The next item then is confirmation of the agenda. And I don't know, I assume that there's nothing further to add or that we're going to delete from the agenda. So I'm assuming that everything is the way it is. Is that right, Carla?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So a motion that we accept the agenda as presented. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Good. And has anybody got a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda? And
None
if you
here.
go ahead.
No, nothing here.
Oh, okay. If you do find yourself treading on the on the brink of conflict of interest, you can declare it at that time. So the next item then is the consent agenda, and we have 13 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like clarification on or would like pulled and dealt with separately? Councillor Jankowski?
Item 5.5, I wanted to pull that aside for discussion, and I had a question on accounts payable and under 5.12.
Angela is on here somewhere. There she is. Angela, do you, I guess, Dean, you can ask her your particular question on the accounts.
Okay, on page 3 of the accounts payable, there's an item for $3,338.49. The vendor is CIBC. The description is CDW Ergon OMIC Town Hall. I was just wondering what that item was about.
Yes, that is the purchase of 14 monitors for ergonomics for our workstations at Town Hall.
Oh, okay.
So the vendor was actually CDW that we purchased them from. They have like a blue light reduction in behind, and it's just an ergonomic upgrade there.
Okay, so it's just some hardware for the administrative office.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 5.5, Dean, we can pull that, I guess, and you would want us to make a decision on that separately. Is that
Yes,
my
please.
understanding? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
please.
All right, so the consent agenda is there. We now have 12 items on the consent agenda, everything with the exception of 5.5. So I don't have Carla beside me now. We don't have a mover and seconder yet for the consent agenda, I don't think. So
That's true.
okay, so somebody to move and somebody to second the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Harrell, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, that's carried. Now, 5.5, Dean, I'll turn that back to you.
Okay, thank you. 5.5 was from Norfolk County, and it was addressed to the province. Norfolk County Council has issues regarding the mapping of the provincially significant wetlands. Their concern is about not having a proper resolution and dispute resolution process in place in case landowners have a different interpretation, or even if the local municipality has a different interpretation of what is a significant wetland or not. So I think under 5.6 we see that Perth South has written a short note supporting the concerns of Norfolk County, as well as the village of Merrickville Wolford. So I would ask if we could do the same as Perth South has done in this case, and ask for, or raise the concerns about how the provincially significant wetlands are being mapped and what the dispute resolution mechanism would be going forward.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there for a second, Dean. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but we got kicked out and everything froze up. So I'm gonna let you start all over again, if you don't mind.
Okay, no, that's
that was
fine.
a good dry run. Well, I think we only got the first little bit and then the screens all froze.
Okay. Now, the Norfolk County has raised a concern to the province about provincially significant wetlands insofar as how the maps are drawn. And going back to our heritage study discussions that we've had previously in the last year, there was concern raised by landowners on what constitutes a wetland and what doesn't. And the concern raised by Norfolk County, and it's endorsed by Perth South, is the transparency of the process and landowner engagement, and coming up with right of repeal or right of appeal and formal dispute resolution mechanisms. So I would ask if council could support West Perth staff writing a short letter similar to what Perth South has done, and you'll see that under 5.6, expressing our concerns about the process and requesting clarification in future and further information.
Okay. And really all we need to do, I think, is support Norfolk County's resolution, I guess, with a mover and seconder. Just for information, at a future meeting, we do have Sally from the planning office in Stratford coming to our meeting to explain a few things, and that would probably be a good question to ask at that time as well, Dean. But if you want to move that we support Norfolk's resolution, and I guess you can add to it a little bit if you want staff to write anything further.
No, I just to keep it simple, I would just endorse Norfolk County's letter and have West Perth put on record supporting that position.
Okay, all right. So I take it you're going to move that then?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that particular motion? Councillor Rose? Any more discussion with regards to that item? Okay, then the motion is that we support Norfolk County's resolution with regards to or issues regarding the mapping of the provincially significant wetlands. All those in favor of that? Looks like everybody's hands up. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, the next item on this is the chief building official's permit summary for March, and Bob is not here this evening. He's not online, or he's not on the computer either. So I don't know if there was any questions with the building permits. It wasn't a terribly long report. And somebody has their mic open, I think. There's some feedback coming in here. Any questions?
Walter?
Yes.
Doug here. That
Yeah.
anaerobic digester down on line 17, did that ever come to council? Like the one that say Jason Lepelars was interested in or not? We've never seen that before. It's obviously, there's a permit for it and we have no say.
Jeff, can you answer that? Yes, I will.
So in the past, we've been asked to comment because of the Ministry of Environment requirements. I am not certain on that application whether we were required to comment or bring it to council. I believe we didn't have to bring it to council. So the past one may have only been brought to council for information, but I can check and report back.
Anything, is that good, Doug? Will,
Yep, that's fine. I just didn't know if something had changed in the process now. Like, I know they all came to council and the neighbors had a say in it, and maybe the neighbors don't have a say in it anymore with the provincial government. I'm not sure.
yeah, I'm not sure either, Doug. I don't know, but Jeff will check into that and get back to us.
Okay.
And you know, and maybe Bob does know the answer to that too, and he's not here. So, okay, moving
Walter?
on then. If there's no other, oh, sorry, Nicholas.
That's all right. Could you or Jeff just say whether or not all building permits are not being issued right now, or agriculture building permits not being issued, or is there a certain type or not allowed, or are they all not allowed?
Yes, Nicholas. We've received more clarification from the province, and they provided a section 28.1, which was a clarification on the I'm hope, yeah, I'm still connected. It was a clarification on the permits that we could issue. The interpretation now is that all agricultural permits can be issued. The building inspector is reviewing that with other building officials in the area. There still may be a requirement that it has a supply, that there's a supply of livestock or a barn that would need to be completed by October 4th, but we're just confirming. But it looks like most agricultural permits are permitted.
Any other questions? Somebody said something? No further questions with that? All right. That brings us down to the next one, and that's a zoning bylaw amendment application number D141320 and site plan control application. And Adam is going to talk to us about that one. So Adam?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Great to see everybody. So the applicant's Hogslat, they've purchased a parcel of land from the municipality in the Herring Business Park, and they're looking to establish a new facility on this parcel. So what they've done is applied for a zoning amendment to lift a holding symbol, and I'll speak to that, as well as, or at the same time, have also applied for the required site plan agreement. So the underlying zoning, the general industrial zone, is already established on the subject lands. It does permit the use that Hogslat is looking to establish here, the agricultural, manufacturing, sales and warehousing. What the holding provision does, it's a provision under the Planning Act that allows municipalities to apply a holding symbol that is once lifted upon the applicant or landowner satisfying requirements imposed by the holding symbol. In this case, the requirement is a site plan control agreement. In this case, one of the reasons why we're interested in site plan is so that in our industrial park, there's not one specific use that would come through and, as an example, take all of the remaining municipal service capacities, i.e. water or sanitary. So once we, as a municipality, are satisfied with any given industry coming to the park, and upon council being satisfied, the holding symbol can be lifted. So unless there's any further questions about my report, nothing further to add. They're both kind of in hand with each other. If council is satisfied with the site plan agreement, I can speak a little bit further to that if council wishes. I think I've detailed it in my report. Council can do both. They can support the site plan application as well as adopt the zoning bylaw to lift the holding symbol. So nothing further to add.
Any questions for Adam? Okay, I don't see anybody's hand up here. So the motion that we have here is that council approve site plan application number D110120 and that council for the municipality of West Perth approve the zoning bylaw amendment Z235 2020 put forward by Hogslat Holdings Inc. affecting the lands described as part of Park Lot 90 Plan 341, further described as parts 1, 2, 6, and 7 on 44R 5734 Mitchell Ward for reasons set out in this report. And a mover and seconder would be in order for this one now. Councillor Trinkowski and Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Any other planning questions for Adam? Okay. The next one is, I guess, Angela's, and it's IT monitoring and support. And then there's also, the next one is on investments. So Angela, floor is yours, or the screen, whatever you want.
Thank you. So my first report is on IT monitoring and support. Towards the end of 2019, our support provider discussed his intent to withdraw services starting in January. So we did get in touch with the county to kind of see if we could work out some joint service. However, our cyber insurance requires us to have continuous monitoring because the earlier you can catch a cyber attack, the lower the impact or the less impact it's going to have on the municipality. So we got an extension until about April, and now we're in April. So we had to make a decision, and with COVID-19, it's kind of placed extra demand on our IT environment, and there's some key projects on hold waiting for our IT environment to progress as well. So we were able to find Micro-Age Basics, and it's a 1-year contract with the possibility of extension for 2 years. The 1 year is the minimum just because licensing tends to come annually. So this way it's spread across the 12 months equally. This satisfies all the cyber insurance requirements, and it provides us with in-depth monitoring of both emails and our entire network. It includes spam filtering through our emails, so we don't have to send an email to everybody and say, heads up, we got this email. That's kind of taken care of. This will provide continuous training for both staff and council. That was also a requirement for our cyber insurance. And on-demand support services, which are really critical to the operations for staff. Happy to say the contract came in at about $8,700 plus non-recoverable HST, and we had put about $15,000 in the budget. We weren't really sure what any of it was going to cost us. So this does leave us some room for some on-demand and on-site support as well. Are there any questions on that?
Okay, questions for Angela? Oh, Nicholas?
I was wondering if they had any references that you could check to see that how they're doing at any other municipality or organization. And is it an active approach that they'll take? Are they going to be testing, seeing if they can find problems in our network and in our software, antivirus or spam or phishing, or is it all going to be passive?
That's a good question. I'll start with the last part. It is active. So every day they do a full network scan electronically that would report any issues or any vulnerabilities. Before we set the contract up, they did a full internal and external network scan that identified any vulnerabilities. Externally, we were in really good shape, which is great. Internally, we do have some vulnerabilities. So they did give us a plan on how to address those and eliminate them. And in terms of monitoring, if there's a threat that's caught through these network scans, they would deal with it immediately. So I would say it's a proactive approach rather than reactive. And in terms of references, they work with Lambton Shores. They work with a couple other municipalities in Lambton. They have all of Huron County, so ACW, Town of Goderich. I personally worked with them in South Huron as well. That was our service provider. And we are the first one in Perth County, but they do have about 3 counties. I think Bruce County is their 3rd county that they have.
Super, thank you.
Any other questions for Angela? Good question, by the way, Nicholas. Okay, if there's no further questions, motion here that West Perth Council received a report titled IT Monitoring and Support dated April the 20th. Moved by Nicholas, seconded by Murray. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
All right, so moving on to my second report, investments. We're taking this from an approach as using investments as a source of income, essentially, because we're continually being pressured with government transfers being reduced and the cost of municipal services increasing. I'll give a little bit of a background. As per the 2018 financial statements, we had about 5.8 million invested in GICs. These had a range of maturities and a range of interest rates. And 3.7 million was invested in long-term promissory notes. So these are greater than 5 years, and they're predominantly, these ones are in West Perth Power, but I believe we have one other one as well. I'm still familiarizing myself with all the small details of the investments we currently have. Over the past year, a number of GICs have either flipped over or matured, and I'm keeping them currently in our cash deposits account because the interest rates we are getting on GICs are so low. They're about 1% right now. And on our current bank account, we are getting 2.4%. So this is why we kind of have to start looking at other investment options other than just GICs, but with the same security that GICs provide us. So an investment strategy would be, we need to diversify the investments in terms of where they're invested, the institutions, the types of investments, rates of investments, and the sources of funds used for these investments. The Municipal Act prescribes our risk tolerance as very low. So they have a legal list and we are quite restricted, and our municipal investment policy further restricts it beyond the Municipal Act, which is probably a good thing. In terms of the market currently, it has dropped significantly due to COVID, which actually presents an opportunity for investments, because in the recovery of the market, there's the potential for income. This is when. So the only time that it's really detrimental when a market crashes is when you need that money right away. Otherwise, you can essentially ride out the market dip and capitalize on the market recovery. So our government uses fiscal policy to encourage the investment, which is what kind of helps the market recover. So we've already seen this, and the markets are already starting to recover a little bit. Obviously, they're not where they were, but they are starting to recover a little bit as a result. The Bank of Canada has dropped the rate from 1% to 0.25%. And we actually just got back up to 1% towards the end of 2019. They are confirming to keep it at 0.25%. That was as of April 15th announcement. So in terms of diversifying the funds for investing, we've got three types of funds in a municipality. We've got our general funds, which we use for day-to-day operations. We've got our reserve funds, and we have our cemetery and trust funds. So our cemetery and trust, the BAO, which is our governing body for cemetery, essentially requires us to invest all of these funds. So these are currently invested. And just keep in mind that, you know, your general checking account is still considered an investment because you are earning interest. So what I did was a cash flow analysis for our general account and determined that we can conservatively invest about 5 to 6 million at this moment, and we will still have about the exact same amount, 5 to 6 million, in our account for the cash flows. The types of investments there are, we've got the cash deposits, as I said, these are high interest savings accounts, checking accounts. This is for funds you need to use on a daily basis, your daily operations. We've got our GICs, which are typically what municipalities used to invest in. They're short-term investments with a fixed rate of return. So they're usually 1 to 5 years. A lot of them used to be like 30 to 90-day ones as well. But now the interest is 1%, if we're lucky even. I've seen some at less than 1%. And I think the highest I saw was about 1.2% for 5 years, locking in the money, which just, it's not an attractive option. So what I wanted to talk about was principal protected notes, which essentially in structure, they are a GIC, but a longer term GIC. So these ones wouldn't be 30 to 60 days or 90 days. These ones would be 3 to 5 years in length. You could go longer if you want to. I'm not sure that there's incentive for us to do that at this point. So these ones are highly customizable. There are growth options, which are based on the performance in the market. So whatever the return might be on the market in these 5 years, we would get a percentage of that. There are annual cash flow notes as well, which allow, say, cemetery funds where we fund part of our operations on interest. We'd want an annual cash flow on those funds. So just a quick note, these are essentially GICs, or you could call them promissory notes as well. They're relatively similar. But we are not investing in the market itself. That's not our core business. There's bonds, and bonds are inversely related to interest rates. So typically for municipalities, when we're not actively managing these, and this isn't our core business, bonds are really hard to derive any solid returns, because as interest increases, the value of your current bonds that you're holding decrease. And then we have equity markets, which this was opened up as per in the Prudent Investment Standard, which is OREG 43897 Part 2. This was trying to give municipalities a better opportunity to get some investment cash flows. So LAS One Fund opened this up because in order to do the Prudent Investment Standard, you have to have like $50 million in net assets or something like that. You also have to be a rated municipality. We're not. So LAS came together and said they would collectively invest smaller municipalities' funds with the intent of capitalizing on this Prudent Investment Standard. So the equity markets are completely linked to the market. It is essentially an indirect investment in stocks, and your return is variable and your principal is not guaranteed, whereas the principal protected notes, your principal is guaranteed. So the minimum you will get if you put $6 million in is you will get $6 million out in 5 years. So the benefit for the bank, they share a portion of these principal protected notes based on the variable return. And they lend against these. So they do these for our basic checking account as well. If we sign on for a 5-year note at X percentage, they can essentially turn around and lend that money for a 5-year fixed mortgage at 2.75%. So they're making 2.75% from their lenders, essentially. So that is how the bank benefits on that. In terms of what everybody else is doing, there are a lot of municipalities. I think he said 468 municipalities requested right away to open accounts when the markets crashed. One of them was West Perth. I gave him a shout, and Corey from Perth County, the treasurer there, also called him at the same time saying, let's go on these principal protected notes. Let's see, what else can I say? I think that's about it. It is investing as per the Municipal Act, Part 1 and Part 2, the legal list and the Prudent Investment Standard. And it does follow our municipal investment policy, even though it restricts it further. I believe it is under Section 4 for authorized investments. We have decided to restrict investments further than the Municipal Act. And the principal protected notes qualify under number 3, which are endorsed by a bank, as long as it's endorsed by a bank. And Section 4, paragraph 5.2, promissory notes or anything like that shall be repaid more than 1 year and no later than 5 years after the date on which the municipality makes the investment. So I will turn this over and see if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thanks, Angela. A lot of information there. Questions? Mike.
Angela.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
You have to unmute your mic, Mike.
Can
There
you hear me
go.
now?
Yes.
Okay. My only comment I get, or one of my comments or questions is about the form. They want to know our occupation. Like, what does that really have to do with it? They have all our other information. They should have.
CIBC does not, but you're right. I'm not sure what points the occupation covers. They did give me, and I mean, I can look into it under the PCML TFA and the IIROC, but it's essentially like you guys are the board of directors for the municipality.
Right.
But
Okay. That's, yeah. I just wonder why I get enough phone calls and emails. I don't need to give out any more information than I have to.
I think, and Angela answered that correctly, Mike. It just has to do that we're considered directors of a corporation, and the bank would treat any corporation very similar, the same way that they would expect the information from their board of directors.
I realize that, but the people put us here and we're here for this term. So Like, I don't know what it can change. I don't know.
We're dealing with a bank here now, Mike.
Okay.
Other questions?
Well, it was just me. Oh, it was just me.
No.
It was the same thing. We never filled this out for the county. And you said that Corey got one of these loans for the county. Now, my occupation on this would be deputy mayor. They don't need to know my other thing, because all they should be concerned about is what I do for the municipality. Mike would be a counselor to me. They don't need to know what I do, but that's up to the people who fill them out.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Sherry?
Can you said something about how many municipalities did you say has applied for this already? Or you said something about 468 municipalities or something?
Yes, with my investment contact at the bank, they had about 468 applications to open accounts.
From
That is
different
not necessarily all municipal.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say there's not even 468 municipalities in all of Ontario. So I thought that number sounded off. Okay.
Dean?
I guess I had more technical questions about what these principal protected notes involve. Like, I would want to know, or I would want to receive a prospectus of the funds that we would be investing into. And I would need to know who the name and the resume of the financial manager in charge of the funds. And I would want to know where the money would be going. Like, what kind of investments are the bank making on our behalf, so to speak? I would be concerned that now isn't quite the right time to be investing anything at the moment. The principle is a good idea, but I think the timing is too soon, and I would be concerned about committing our money elsewhere when we might need it later.
So I'll respond to that on a couple of levels, Councillor Trentowski. On the first level, the advice that we've received from investors is that this is the time to invest in principal protected notes, and therein lies the reason for the number of applications. We went through the process of setting up the account now, and we probably should have had it set up earlier, but that was something, and we shared that form because we wanted to be completely transparent with council. The earlier part of your question about your interest as a councillor in having a look at the prospectus of the companies, that's a level of detail that in my opinion is why we're using the services of a bank and an investment company. And the policy that we have for investments delegates the decisions around prudent investment to the treasurer. And so I would just say to you that I believe it's a staff function to set up the account to secure the proper investment opportunities and to obviously report on the performance of the investments to council.
That's correct. It is required by the Municipal Act that I do an annual report. So you should be receiving annual reports for all of the outstanding investments.
Dean again?
I guess what I'm trying to say is before I put my name to something, I'd like to know more about what I'm getting into. I understand you've done your research, but I would like to have a look as well. Anyone that I've talked to about this issue on my own, they haven't given me much enthusiasm towards principal protected notes.
In terms of the investments, we're investing in a principal protected note or a GIC. The terms would be X number of years, percentage, say, example, 50% of the upswing of the market. That would be the extent of our investment. That is what we're investing in. It is the bank that's doing the other investments. And that's not, like, that's out of our hands. So our investment is essentially a principal protected note or a GIC, which is essentially a principal protected note as well. The rest of it is more on how they make the money and can offer us the money, essentially. that makes sense.
Walter, you're talking without your microphone on.
Okay, is that better? Yep, we're good. Okay, the other item, I guess you got to keep in mind that the ministry has allowed the municipalities to do this, and we're limited to what we can invest. For example, there's private enterprises out there that some of our council people maybe even work for, that we certainly couldn't invest in that or their corporations. So we're limited to what we can do on that note. But I do want everybody to to have a fairly good handle on what we're doing here. So any other questions from any other members of council? Councillor Bell?
Sorry. How long did you say we were going to invest this 5 or 6 million for? How many years?
It'd be 3 to 5 years.
And what happens if something happens in 3 years and we need that money?
Then
Or
we pull
4
it.
years? Or 2
We
years?
can
Or 2
pull it
years?
out.
What's the penalty?
There is no penalty for pulling it out. You would just get the return of the market at that time. So that's why you would invest funds that you don't need to use in the immediate future, so that you can ride out whatever the market is doing, but there is no penalty to pull the money out.
So but the reason we're picking this with this bank is specifically because of what's happening in our economy right now. We're looking to profit off of it.
In a kind of, yes,
In
that
a
doesn't
really
sound very
unknown way.
nice, but yes.
So we're looking to profit off the fact that our province and our country is struggling right now. Is that basically why we're looking at this, or is this something that we'd be looking at anyway, regardless of what our situation? I'm just having a little moral issue here, not.
So we're capitalizing on the markets. So this has nothing to do with like the backs of the people. So this is the markets have gone down, and that unless people are pulling their money out, nobody has actually lost physical money at this point. So it's all in the time horizon of your investment. So morally, no, we're not capitalizing on other people's losses. In terms of if we're looking at this anyway, yes, we were looking at it. That's why we were able to kind of proceed with the account, because I had already inquired into this probably at the end of 2019. So I was able to meet with CIBC, I met with TD, I met with BMO, RBC Wealth Management, and I had talked to LAS One Fund Investments. So the reason I selected CIBC was actually because for CDIC insurance to protect our investment is 1 million as opposed to 100,000 where all the other banks offer. So that was the only reason.
That was going to be my question, was why did you choose, if you had looked into other ones, who else you'd looked into and why you chose CIBC?
Correct, yes.
So I think Angela has done her due diligence in looking or shopping the market. I guess the other point that I want to make is that these funds have been in a GIC, and they have became due in, I guess, late 2019. So we would be investing them into something anyways, whether it's a GIC or what it is. So I don't think saying we're taking advantage of the times that we're in now and that we're taking an opportunity, I don't think that's fair, because this is money that we would be investing no matter what the conditions of the economy were at this time. I'm looking for other questions. I'm trying to look at my whole screen here. So anybody, Jeff?
Sorry, not a question, but a comment. As far as I'm concerned, now is the most important time we should be investing that money to help the economy get moving again. I don't think it's anything immoral about investing that money and trying to get that back into get the economy moving with what it needs right now. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Anybody else? Nicholas?
So when you say CIBC, does that mean the bank, or is it a CIBC Wealth Management or some other subsidiary or other wing that, because when you say CIBC, I have faith in that, for lack of a better word, bank as too big to fail, that yes, we'll be able to get our principal back. But if it is just another corp that is doing a bunch of investing, then I worry about a little getting our money back. But if it's secured by the bank CIBC, then it's a little more reassuring to me.
It is secured by CIBC. However, CIBC Wealth Management is the one administering it. So any investments over 1 million, I believe, was the cutoff. The private wealth management administers those.
And so if that's a separate corporation to CIBC, that if they don't have the money to pay it back, they won't be able to pay it back. But it's so 1 million is guaranteed by CIBC Bank, or 1 million is guaranteed by the Canadian government in CDIC.
The Canadian government in CDIC.
Okay. So CIBC Bank doesn't have a stake really in it. They're using that name.
I'd have to look at the terms, but I can
Okay.
double check those terms and I can let council know on the terms that are specific. Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, forgive me for smiling during your talk. I thought that Sherry had a black ponytail, but apparently not.
I don't know. That cat does not like me ever. I'm not sure why it's decided it likes me right now.
Okay, Dean? Your mic is muted.
I was just wondering if we couldn't wait, give this idea a couple months or 3 or 4, just to see how the market goes before we commit to anything. I'm not quite sure we've hit the bottom yet. There's a lot of trouble in the energy industry right now. The price of oil went below 0 today. And I think we haven't seen the full economic impact of this situation yet. So I just would ask if we could wait and see a good investments like a bus. There's always another good one coming around every so often. So that's my thought right now, just to bide our time a little bit before we try this. The money's safe in our bank account at 2.5% right now. So
Essentially, the investment that they're going to take the PPN and do, they are actually doing with our bank account right now, which is why that's why they say banks can't liquidate all their bank accounts all at once, because I mean, our cash deposits are also being invested in the same manner. And that's how they can offer us interest on our checking account or high interest savings account. In terms of the bottom of the market, we will never know what it is until it's gone, essentially. And it has started to recover already. So that's not saying it won't plummet again, but there has been quite a bit of recovery since.
Anybody else? Okay, I have a motion here, and there's a couple different things that we can do here, I guess. The motion here still is good, I think. Basically, the motion is that we received a report titled Investments. And I'm not sure when Angela was wanting to move on this, but certainly we can, there's a few things that she was going to investigate and report back to us on, so we could have that information at our next meeting. Dean has suggested that we maybe wait a little longer, maybe a few months before we move on this. You know, I guess, you know, I echo what Jeff had said earlier. You know, this is really a job that our treasurer is supposed to do, and for years I don't remember us ever giving Karen information on how to invest. I think it just happened, and we got a report at the end of the year. So I'm going to read the motion, and I think we're safe in accepting that because there's no time period here. It's just that the municipality of West Perth received the report titled Investments dated April the 20th. And Angela, you were going to get back to us fairly soon with the question that, was it Nicholas had, I believe?
Yes. Yeah. So
Is that-
these are customizable investments. So I will just say they are doing them every day.
Okay.
And
So
they'll have so many of certain ones and then they're gone. So there is time sensitivity to it all.
Right. Okay. Does that satisfy everybody? And I'm kind of looking at the screen here for some nods and one tracking another. So, okay. Nicholas, sorry.
No problem. So by passing this motion, what does that actually mean, Walter, that you're saying? Because that, to me, that motion doesn't say anything.
That's why I said we're fairly safe in accepting it. We're just accepting the report that Angela gave us here. And it's leaving it open that she can report back to us at a future time, whether it's the next meeting or not, what we should do. If you want something worded different than that, by all means, say so.
Well, typically, I don't think we would accept the report because it just gets bundled up at the end. We don't accept each individual report along as we go, do we?
You're right there. I just have the sheet and it was printed up. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Carla why I have a sheet.
Yeah, this was a for information report. So as such, these reports would just be, as Councillor Vink suggested, it would just be tied in to accept the report. As I understand, this report is more for information on this is what the treasurer is planning to do. If you can correct me, Angela.
Correct. The authority was technically delegated in the investment policy for the municipality, as well as the municipal act. However, I will wait until I get this information back to council. That is not a problem, to make sure everybody's questions are answered.
Does that satisfy the rest of council? That Angela will get back to us whenever our first meeting in May is and make.
Or before then is fine too.
Before.
If she just passes that information on via email, I guess is okay for me.
Sure. Okay. Sherry?
Okay, so just to clarify for me, by accepting this report, we're in essence.
We're not going to accept it. It's
just
I understood Carla there. It's just for information, and we usually do that at the end. We just accept reports to staff.
Okay, so I'll rephrase it then. So there'll be another motion made at a later time that gives Angela permission to move forward, or this one gives her permission to move forward. We're just waiting for the rest of for her to agree to do so. The rest of the information. See what I'm saying? Makes sense?
The investment policy was the authorization.
Okay, so you already have the authorization. You could have gone ahead and done this without, you're just bringing it to us in a different manner that we're not used to. So you could have gone ahead and done this without asking us anyway. I just want to make sure I understand it right?
Correct. Yes, yes.
Okay, any other comments from anybody? Councillor Rose. Oh, your mic is muted, Murray. There you go, I think.
I think some of the concerns of some of us, my fellow councillors, is that we kind of remember maybe going through the 80s, which was similar but different because interest was so high that it was uncertain times and that people had thought they were investing in good and had lost money. We're just a little nervous, I think, some of us, that's all. It was just more of a comment that I was making.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Okay, I'm going to look around the screen here once more, and if you have a question or a comment, put your hand up. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Okay, thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Okay, next item then is Carla's report on some, the tender result for some drains. So Carla, I turn it over to you.
Yes, this is just a standard accepting of the tender results. So this is for drains B and F of the Miller Drainage Works. The lowest tender came in from Robinson Farm Drainage Limited at 140,000. And under Sprayed Associates report, the construction estimate was 142,600. So it came in just under budget. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Carla on that? If not, a motion is in order that we award the constructions of the B and F drains of the Miller Drainage Works to the lowest tender bid of Robinson Farm Drainage in the amount of 140,000 plus HST. Oh, sorry, Nicholas?
Carla, have we done the quarter revision, and can we accept the tender before the quarter revision is done?
So there's two. Technically, no. Technically, yes. We haven't had the quarter revision. The quarter revision was scheduled for the April 7th meeting. We did have to cancel that quarter revision, and it has been postponed, not rescheduled. Currently, the drainage superintendents are kind of wrestling with what is essential, what is not essential, and the Drainage Act at this time has not been amended to permit electronic meetings. So we are in a kind of in a stalemate in terms of we can't have the quarter revision yet. It would be my recommendation we've let tender. The tender is only good for the 30 days, is to accept the tender as received on condition that the construction not begin until the quarter revision. That'd be made very clear to the contractor. At this time that the tender received had construction starting in late September. And as you know, drainage construction is very behind, and I can only imagine that this would cause even additional significant impacts to that industry. So it would be my recommendation to at least get penciled in, accept the tender, get penciled in so that we were at least in a queue for this construction to work. I have no concerns over the quarter revision happening before end of September. However, should we have that concerned, we could reissue a contract just stating that the construction could not begin before the quarter revision. There aren't that many individuals assessed to this property. Where it's located, most of the property are owned by the same individuals. In this case, the two primary landowners assessed are aware of the current situation and are very understanding and just waiting for matters to proceed when possible.
Great, thanks. I can move that, Walter.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Vink. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Height, any further discussion? Oh, question? Sorry. I'm not sure who's speaking here.
Jeff just got on the camera.
That's what the noise was? Settle down, Jeff. Okay, and in a discussion, just so you know, in a discussion with Carla, we thought that this was probably the best way to handle it. Let the contractor know that he's the low bidder, being that it wasn't going to start construction until September anyways. At least we can get him in the queue, and he knows what work he's got, and we know that we've got that pegged in, that we've got a contractor to do it. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is Jeff, and this is the results of the rental agreement on the Hayfield.
Okay, the report was circulated to council. The results are listed in the table. Pretty straightforward. A good response from tenders and 4 bids. And so, of course, I'm recommending that we take the highest bidder for this contract.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. when Jeff speaks, does anybody else get a bit of an echo, or is that just me? It's happening all over. Okay, that's fine. I thought it was maybe just because we're in the same room. Any questions with regards to this tender? Okay, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder then. Moved by Councillor Harrell, seconded by Councillor Murray, that we award the rental of 11.7 hectares of land described as part lot 2223, concession 1 of the former Fullerton Ward in the Mitchell Ward to the highest bid submission received from Paul Mitchell in the amount of $29.58. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Correspondence. We have a couple items of correspondence here, two to be exact, one from Councillor Trinkowski and one is from Joan Van Herk with regards to the municipal yard waste day, and that has already been taken care of. Dean, do you wish to talk to your piece of correspondence?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In the agenda, there was a Carla, it included an email that I sent on Friday. So that's kind of a preamble to the discussion. What's happened last month, there's 3 serious accidents at the Bornholm intersection, Highway 23 and County Road 44. One on the 17th, the 23rd, and then a final one on the 26th. The 17th was particularly serious and involved the OPP closing that intersection and all the approaches to it. So there was different things happening at different times. I had contacted Mayor McKenzie about the accident on the 17th that evening, and then suggested at that time that this was a situation similar to the Russelldale intersection, where there were numerous accidents at that location. So I was suggesting a citizens petition, and Mayor McKenzie went so far as to contact through County Council, county staff, who in turn contacted MTO, and somewhere along the line, the OPP, local OPP were contacted as well as the office of MPP Randy Pettipies. So as it stands right now, and Mayor McKenzie might be able to help me out with some of the details, but the county and the MTO have committed to studying that situation, the safety of that intersection more closely. The OPP have been monitoring with a cruiser located at that intersection, monitoring the speed and enforcing the traffic speed limits there. But what I have before you is a citizens petition that I undertook even under the conditions of the COVID-19 lockdown. I was able to manage to get some signatures. I forget how many are there, but there's 15 or 16 per page. I think there's over 150 there, if I'm not mistaken. So I think what we're trying to do is make some changes at that intersection to make it safer. And I've outlined in the petition different options that are available, starting with some of the easier steps and least costly steps to some that are more extensive, and it would involve more planning and cooperation and cost amongst all the different parties involved. So to help reinforce the seriousness of the situation, I'm asking that council consider the petition and endorse the aims of the petition so that we can ask staff to forward that petition along to the different parties that we've engaged, i.e. the county, Perth County, MTO, OPP, and our MPP's office, to try and help move things along to make some safety changes. That's all I had for now.
Okay. And I don't have a problem. I think it would, we can certainly, if council wishes, we can support this particular correspondence. Where we're at right now, basically we have the same people involved as were involved with the Russellville intersection. And it's actually the same person from MTO as well. So the OPP, the county, and also Randy Pettipies are all on the same page. MTO is working with us, but they're going to place the camera similar to what they did in Russellville, and they're going to monitor that intersection for a period of time. So I think the work is in progress, but there's certainly nothing wrong with forwarding this petition, and I'm kind of looking towards Dean. I would think maybe we would just send it to Randy Pettipies' office and let him forward it to MTO to deal with it that way.
Yeah, I guess that would be appropriate on the provincial government side. If we direct it through his office and then have it go down to the appropriate MTO personnel at the Western Region office in London. But I was just wondering if we couldn't copy our local OPP detachment and also copy the county as well, and then we'd have all the bases covered.
Yeah, we can do a resolution certainly here in support of the, and we'll have to word it, and maybe Dean's already got it worded, but we can support this this petition and send a copy to the county and to until police services or the OPP, wherever it wants to go. They're well aware because they've been involved, and certainly I've had conversations with them, and they're on side. So it'll only help reinforce what's already happening. So if somebody wants to make a motion that we support, I just got to work on the wording here, but that we support the petition from the community of Bornholm with regards to the intersection at Highway 23 and County Road, what's the number there, Dean? 44.
44.
Yeah, okay. For improvements, and I forget what I said at the start, but for improvements to that intersection, something along that line. Would that sound okay? Murray had his hand up first. You're going to move that. And Sherry, you want to second that, or did you have a question?
No, I will second it. I stand behind that wholeheartedly. My grandfather and my uncle were killed at that corner
Sure.
in 1981. So I stand behind that 110%.
Okay, good, good. Thank you. Okay, any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of supporting this petition? Opposed, if any? Okay, Anna Marie, do you want to say anything?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, I want to throw you under the bus here. Okay, now I have another motion here, and it is that, yeah, we can deal with this. Well, Joan Van Herks, let's deal with that one first, correspondence, and it's pretty straightforward. It's for information. As was noted, and I think an email went out and it's been advertised in the paper for the next week or so. There is going to be a yard waste pickup, I guess, at the community center this Saturday and next Saturday from, what's the time? 9 till noon on both of those days. And we got to keep in mind that we're still got to keep distance in mind. So you bring your yard waste and it'll be kind of policed. You go in one gate and out the next gate, and there'll be dumpsters there or bins there that you can deposit your yard waste in. We do not want any garbage or anything else other than yard waste, and you will have to prove that you're a resident of West Perth for natural reasons that we don't want to be taking yard waste from other municipalities. We got enough of our own. So just have to verify that where it's come from. So I don't think that there's really any necessity to any further discussion on the letter from Joan Van Herk. But I do have a motion here then that we accept the reports from staff and councilors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed.
Sorry, Walter, before we go on, I do have a, I would like to talk a little more about this the letter here. I do
Okay,
know
sure.
that there's a, sorry, excuse me. There are other municipalities that are allowing access to the landfill site through appointments. So somebody would set up an account, make an appointment, pay for it, or give their credit card, and then go through and go through the waste scales and drop it off that way. So there's no actual contact with the staff at the site other than being waved through. Is this something that we would consider doing at all, or is this are we not able to handle something like this at this point?
We will do that right now, Jeff.
Oh, we will still, okay.
If you, if you're renovating a house or something, for example, and you've got a bunch of plaster and lath or something like that, you call the municipal office and we'll make arrangements for you to take that to the landfill. So we're addressing that. Out of this and going down the road after this pandemic is over, we may do some changes to the system at the landfill, but currently we have no internet out there, so there's no way that we can handle debit card or credit card or anything like that. So that's maybe something that we're going to have to work on down the road. But as of right now, if you have an accumulation of waste and you need to get it to the landfill, then call the office and we'll make an appointment and we'll look after you. Anybody else?
Thanks, Walter.
Okay, Carly, you got to help me out. I think we had that moved and seconded, didn't we?
The last one, yes, we did.
Okay, so we just need to.
No, we didn't have that moved and seconded. I was just going to comment that in addition to calling the office, on our website under garbage recycling landfill, there is further information on setting up that account, as well as for those one-off, as you said, renovation projects, big couches, mattresses. There is a number to contact there as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the motion that we accept reports from correspondence and committee minutes has been moved and seconded. Everybody in favor? Okay,
That has not been moved and seconded, sorry.
Oh, I thought it was.
No.
Okay, all right. Well, then let's everybody's in favor of it, so it shouldn't be hard to get a motion then. Somebody want to move that then? Moved by Councillor Marshall, seconded by Councillor Rose. And again, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. I thought we did have a mover and seconder for that. All right, council reports. The mayor's report is there. While there is not a lot of physical meetings, there's certainly a lot of virtual meetings, as you can see. Sabo Bayfield, Councillor Tam, anything you want to add to that?
Can you hear me there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Just February 20th was the annual general meeting, and we have a new chair now, Doug Cook, replaced George Irvin. I think that's about the main highlight from that meeting. And this Thursday, April 23rd, we have a video Zoom meeting similar. Hopefully I get on better than I did today, but have some practice now anyway. So other than that, I think that's it, unless there's any questions.
Right. Any questions for Mike? All right. Upper Thames, Anna Marie.
So that's just the budget that was passed at the February annual meeting. And it's been forwarded to all the municipalities now. We have our board meeting coming up next week through Zoom as well. So that's all I have.
Okay, did anybody have any questions for Anna Marie from the minutes? Councilor or Deputy Mayor Ite.
Just to both Mike and Anna Marie and who's the other one, Jeff? The campgrounds are closed now too. So how is that gonna affect? Like, we just got a notification tonight that we're not camping at Wildwood on long weekend in May. Are they gonna be better off or worse off when that's all over?
Anna Marie?
Well, we'll find out when we have the meeting, but I'm imagining they're not able to hire the seasonal staff. So they may save that way, but they also won't have the income from all the campgrounds, which is pretty big for Upper Thames. So we'll find out at the meeting how it's playing out.
Do you have any further comments, Mike?
No, at this point, we haven't talked about that. As far as the Sable Bayfield, they have one campground that they lease out, that Great Canadian Hideaway at Park Hill. So that's just a lease, but as far as some of the other user fees, I'm sure they're not gonna be there, but I don't know, maybe the expenses, it ends up being a wash, so, but we haven't addressed that at all.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl, do you have any comments about how Maitland Valley is handling their campgrounds?
Yeah, the Little Falls was actually supposed to open this past weekend, but they've obviously closed that till further into May. They're again haven't hired any of their staff, so it's just a wait and see and how things pan out.
Okay, Mike?
Just a question, Anna Marie, on the budget line, the transfer payment recovery. What's that regarding?
I'd have to look into that, Mike. I'd have to get back to you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was getting at the government funding or, because we could all put that, if that was what it was getting at. I just don't recall seeing that before.
Okay, I'll look at it and let you know.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? So, as usual, I'm allowed one mistake. So we've already passed the motion to accept minutes and correspondence, and we just had two more after we passed it, but I think we've covered that already, so we'll just carry on here. We have a number of bylaws to deal with here. 7, I guess, to be exact. So we have bylaw 22, which provides for drainage works of the A drain of the Bodie municipal drain. We have bylaw or zoning bylaw 235 to amend for property described as part of Park Lot 90 Plan 341 of the Mitchell Ward. It's the hog slat one that we talked about earlier. Bylaw 34 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 1 2018, a bylaw to establish a policy governing the calling, place, and proceedings of council and committees, which allows us to carry on this meeting tonight. Bylaw 35 is to authorize an agreement between Her Majesty the Queen in right in the province and the Minister of Transportation for the province and the Corporation of West Perth for funding under the dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation. Bylaw 36 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a land rental agreement that we talked about with Paul Mitchell. Bylaw 37 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the Corporation of West Perth and Hogslat Holdings, Inc. And Bylaw 38 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the Corporation of West Perth and Gary, Lloyd, and Gerda Dill in the municipality of West Perth in the county of Perth. So we can deal with, I'm just looking here, all of them get 3 readings, Carla, is that right?
No, you are incorrect.
I am.
Yeah, you are. It's because you questioned it. The Bodie, the Adrian of the Bodie, this is the 3rd and final reading for
Okay.
the spring.
Okay, so we can still do that all in one motion though, that we give 3rd and final reading to bylaw 22, 2020, and give 1st, 2nd, and 3rd and final reading to bylaw zoning bylaw 235 and bylaw 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38. And the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal there too. So a mover and seconder for that would be in order. Councillor Rose, Councillor Tam, any further questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Good, we're moving along here. Next item then is upcoming events, and we've already talked about the next 2 Saturdays is the yard waste at the Arena Community Center Complex. The regular council meeting is May 4th, and then again on May 19th. And May the 18th is a holiday, so the municipal office and the landfill will be closed. Probably not going to notice a big difference from what's going on right now. Any notices of motion? Any other business? If not, we have no closed session tonight. So a confirmatory bylaw is here, and it's bylaw number 39, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth be read a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd time and finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I just have one item before I take a mover and seconder on that. With regards to the events that happened in Nova Scotia yesterday, some municipalities, and I'm not going to say all, but a number of municipalities have lowered their flags to half-mast. And I wondered if that would be a gesture that we could maybe do in West Perth as well for support and show our, our sympathy to the people in Nova Scotia. Just looking for a little bit of input on that. Dean, good? Everybody's nodding yes, so I'll leave word with staff that we lower the flags tomorrow morning, and we'll probably leave them down until for a week, roughly, yeah, for a week, and then we'll put them back up again. Okay, so I did read the confirmatory bylaw. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bell, Councillor Rose, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Tunkowski, Councillor Harold, all those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you. I think we've done fairly good. I didn't